Guys don't care about fashion.
We do. We love. It's not like I don't know a lot about art, but I know what I like, and I love
I can't even imagine what I'd be wearing if dudes ran the fashion world.
That would actually be kind of awesome. All right. Let's start with the perfect design, okay? An undershirt.
High-heel shoes.
High-heel shoes. Okay, that's good.
What about holes in the shirt where the titties are?
Oh, I like that. Okay. Okay, what about bottoms? Do we want to do a skirt? Do you want to do jeans? What about ripped up jeans?
What about no pants? That's it.
But turning a human being into a thing is almost always the first step toward justifying violence against that person. We see this with racism, we see it with homophobia, we see it with terrorism. It's always the same process. The person is dehumanized and violence then becomes inevitable. And that step is already and constantly taken with women.
They treat us almost as if we are mannequins.
They're using the model as a mannequin. They're almost like a hanger. It's not supposed to be about the model.
You're not supposed to notice the model.
No, just the clothes. I think you have some people who are looking at the model as an object in the sense that they're like a hanger or a mannequin. And then I think you have some people who look at the model as an object in the way that...
Like a sexual image.
A sexual image. And I mean, it's the problem.
It makes me feel sick. Kara is not standing by silent over what she thinks is sexual harassment and body shaming in the industry. She's speaking out on what may have always been a dirty little secret.
Modeling is the sale of mostly women's bodies for the purpose of moving merchandise.
And it doesn't seem right.
I don't like seeing that.
Disgusting. I'm not gonna describe anything. I think she looks nice. She probably likes bows or something. If I will have to explain it, then it's like they're half naked. I don't want to talk about it. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Well, they have to do that in the bathroom.
No, she's not a role model for me.
It's kind of inappropriate for younger kids to see naked women in advertisements and stuff. I'd rather not know about this. I don't think it's okay to show a woman like that because, it's private.
I feel like she can do a lot of commercials.
She can absolutely work.
And guys would love her.
Yes. Touching over and over again, being asked to do things that you're not comfortable with.
Men pressing their crotch into me when I am in my underwear on set.
I did have an agent offer me drugs.
The hand being thrown down the back of your pants.
I wish I could eat you up in that dress.
Coerced to take my top off.
There is no control.
And that is just if nothing goes wrong.
Just go for a test shoot. We're just taking Polaroids. They're like, okay, can you take your top off? No, I'm underaged. It's a certain abuse of power. It's disgusting.
It exists in every level of authority in the industry. It's not just at the top.
We as a workforce become almost inhuman.
Like I've always said, it's not who you know, it's who you blow, said infamous photographer Terry Richardson. I don't have a hole in my jeans for nothing. This tactic sends a message to men in the fashion community that sexual abuse is an industry standard.
Fashion is psychology because it's about human behavior.
And they told me, you need to use tampons. If you want to be in this industry, you need to start using tampons. In what other workplace would it be okay to tell one of your coworkers what they need to put in their vagina? I'm sorry.
Tampon companies have done a very good job of kind of making it seem as though everything's okay. You see tampon commercials and you see, you know, girls running on a beach or going down a slide, and it's like there's no warning at the bottom of that at all about TSS, or, you know, you could lose limbs or you could fucking die. It can happen within 5 minutes of using one. It could be your first tampon you ever use in your life.
Most of the designers in Paris who had her on option completely canceled her without even offering her a go-see to see that this was not true. And I saw her, and I booked her, and we sat backstage backstage. We sat at her fitting and we talked. And I just said, what happened? And she said, she's like, I wasn't fat. She said, I was pregnant. And I thought it was more important in my career to terminate the pregnancy so that I could get this show and I could make this girl happy. And in the end, I got here and I still wasn't the right girl for her.
At some point, you have to say all models are exceptional looking. Otherwise, we'd all be models. When there is this push to get the plus-size model, the older woman model, the different looks of a model.
Beauty comes in all shapes, forms and sizes.
Do you believe that, even for modelling?
I do believe that.
So could the ordinary be beautiful? Could the ordinary be a model?
I think that's been proved now, that the ordinary can be beautiful. Isn't that what social media has done?
The fashion industry is responding to new societal norms where 30 to 60% of the U.S. population is not a size 0, as they see on the fashion runways in Paris. So I think that they're simply reflecting what's real life. And as to the question of whether or not these plus-size models are beautiful, I think if you have the vision and sight without, being completely blind or myopic, being plus size has nothing to do with how beautiful you are.
I didn't see anyone who had a visible disability in the mainstream media.
I am 64.
I will be 71 on June 27th.
I'm 52. There's still no preparing for a different face.
The World Bank estimates that there are 1 billion people with disabilities on the planet. Or differently put, 15% of the world's population. This is not an insignificant population. Now, it's also important to recognize that people with disabilities may have been born with a disability or may have acquired a disability by way of natural disaster. In Haiti, 300,000 people were estimated to have become disabled after the earthquake. We know that war and conflict also creates disabilities. We also know that disease creates disabilities. Think Zika. So why is this important? Well, this is important because I think what it tells us is that people with disabilities are part of our human diversity.
When I was starting off modeling, when I was shooting with a photographer, I felt like they haven't had enough experience working with dark-skinned model. The way he edited was way lighter. That's not how I look like, and I don't want to confuse people.
Unfortunately, yes. As an actress, you pay a lot of money for headshots. I had a photographer shoot me once. My pictures, I was just lit very poorly. I felt like I had a yellowish hue to my skin, and the shoot was kind of a waste. I couldn't really use the pictures. As a culture, we're coming to the consensus that we're tired of excluding people because of their skin tone.
So it doesn't really make sense that any dark-skinned people aren't really accounted for.
Sometimes they ask me, come makeup ready. Can you bring your own foundation? Where all my other model friends don't have to do that. They don't have products for my complexion.
If you're gonna be behind the camera, or you're gonna do makeup, or you're gonna do lights, you should have a responsibility to your craft to know how to make that work for all people.
We used to have a system, a fashion system. That has absolutely nothing to do with the fashion industry today. It has been reinvented.
It's based on materialism. The problem is that comes at a really high price.
Garment factory collapsed, killing more than 1,000.
Clashes between clothes factory workers and riot police in Cambodia.
Yes, for sure there is. There's something about men at the top that does change the way women's fashion is run, for sure.
Well, fashion is an interesting one because it's kind of sold as this industry that's very open and very, sort of embodies creativity. But once you kind of unpick it a bit, you see that actually the ownership of fashion has been stitched up by a very few companies, both in terms of high fashion and high street fashion, and indeed like the fashion media. I mean, you go into a news agent and you buy a magazine, you think you're buying a sort of independent or individually produced magazine, but actually again, they're all owned by a few enormous media corporations, like Condé Nast, for example.
What that actually means is those
clients don't hire women. That's right, commercial photography is still perceived to be a man's job. Now let's be clear, this is not a pipeline issue. And back in 2015, the New York Times Magazine ran a cover story about the deeply rooted bias in Hollywood. For the piece, dozens of women were photographed, all by one man. And this is what happens time and again. All these Me Too and Lean In stories, the Women of the Year, they all get lensed by men. So why should we all care? Because those who are paid to create the images which shape our culture have real power. Something's amiss when networks for women, television networks for women, and you know which ones I'm talking about, only hire men to shoot the advertising, despite many talented women being available. Movie studios, cable networks, and streaming networks too, pass over women photographers for these big and prestigious advertising jobs. And the same thing goes with consumer advertising campaigns. So it's no wonder that 91% of women say the advertisers don't understand them.
So, all joking aside, I think we know that Rihanna loves her phone and uses it daily to speak to a vast global audience through tweets and selfies and social media generally. That's just one way she's made herself heard in the world. Another is through her music, that magical singing voice, which is a gift we are all so grateful for. But I am here tonight to talk about how Rihanna communicates through fashion, because of course, that is what style icons do. They tell us captivating stories about themselves and about the world we live in.
Bitch, give me your money. Who y'all think y'all frontin' on? Like blah, blah, blah. Louis 13 and it's all on me, nigga, you.
The Orange Label project is Fashion Says No to Violence Against Women, and this way we hope to really activate the whole of social media around this campaign to say we really must stop this global pandemic.
We are all in this together. We, as creatives, can glamorise anything at all.
Big designers, I'm not going to name any brands, but big designers and brands, they get young designers like myself who are fresh from uni, who really want to be in the industry. They get them to work things like 12 hours, a day, even 15 hours, doing really, I wouldn't say petty jobs, because no job is petty, but are you thinking, I've spent, 3 years, 4 years studying, and this is what I'm doing. And I think it's time that the government put laws in this, because they don't get paid, these designers. It's all about, you getting experience, which is, if I may put it in French, bollocks. And you're thinking, well, is this fair? They charging, things like £3,000 to about £20,000 or more for a coat or a dress. And you're thinking, I'm not even gonna see a penny of this money. On top of that, you're thinking, well, look at that beaded sleeve, beautiful, everybody's loving it. I did that. And you don't even get, you just a nobody. And it really, to think about it, it just breaks my heart.
This enormous, rapacious industry that is generating so much profit, why is it that it is unable to support millions of its workers properly?
The actual business model is completely unsustainable. Unless you change that model, you can't change anything.
When everything is concentrated on making profits, what you see is that human rights, the environment, workers' rights get lost.
My God, we can do better than this.
And I want it.